Hello and welcome to The Take. I'm your host, Chesley McNeil. Each weekday, we're looking at stories, making headlines, and bringing experts from our community to give their take. Here's a look back at some of the top takes from this week and how those in the know are seeing those stories that impact you. All right, this past week, the U.S. Supreme Court handed down several key decisions which are likely to reshape legal fights well beyond this term. The court ruled that federal district courts cannot issue nationwide injunctions unless necessary to fulfill projects and parties involved. The latest, this limits the power of lower courts to block federal policies across the country. Another ruling allows states to cut off Medicaid funding for reproductive health providers, even if those providers deliver no abortion services. The justice also decided that parents have a constitutional right to opt their children out of lessons involving LGBTQ storybooks if those materials conflict with sincerity held by religious beliefs. All right, joining us now is John Acedo. He is the professor at Emory University School of Law. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, welcome back, I should say. You've been on the show a couple of times. You're a friend of the show now. All right, all these rulings were a 6-3 split. How does this reinforce the perceived firm ideology split between the justices?
It most certainly is showing a fractured court here with our 6 conservative justices lumping together. It's interesting in the lower profile cases, or ones perhaps that are less culturally significant, we tend to see much more mixing of the justices.
All right, so the big ruling on the injunctions is it's backed by executive orders by President Trump. How do you feel about that? How does that strengthen the president's position?
It certainly will make it much more difficult for any opponents of President Trump's policies to challenge his actions. It's going to require now a nationwide effort. We can imagine something birthright citizenship that's very established law, that the 14th Amendment covers it. Nevertheless, to challenge it or to stop it and have an injunction, you're now going to need to file in almost every district court in the country, which is just a monumental fee and task.
On Medicaid, right, the providers, how does this give the state lawmakers clearly legal grounds to exclude such providers such as public health funding?
This is really going to be interesting to see it play out in the coming months and years. On the one hand, it gives states tremendous coercive power over healthcare providers, especially large conglomerates that operate many different services to end that reproductive services, even though they're not providing abortions. At the same time, it's going to also be interesting that constituents may start to push back as they see their health services curtailed. That's something, especially in rural areas, to have a healthcare provider anywhere close by is becoming more and more difficult as our shortage of doctors increases.
All right, finally, parents may opt out of the LGBTQ theme lesson based on religious grounds. How do you see this ruling impacting education right here in Georgia?
This one's going to be interesting to watch. Had they decided on the rights of parents to upbringing of their children, it would have been much more in line with previous case law. Instead, they used the First Amendment religious freedom, which will now open up the ability of parents to challenge almost any aspect of public schooling that they dislike on religious grounds. So I think this one has the potential to upend our public education system.
So based on this particular ruling, you're saying anything that a certain religious group doesn't like, they can kind of, take it away from their children.
That seems to be where the court is going. This case and a few other recent ones, the ability of folks to challenge secular books, activities on religious grounds, the court seems to be, at least a 6-member majority of the court, is very determined to push forward. Again, it'll be interesting what the limit is. You can imagine parents are going to start using this to help their children, as rightly they should. But it will be interesting to see if this is a large can of worms or if the court walks it back fairly quickly.
Yeah. Were there any other rulings that caught your attention?
I think the other one is the Texas case limiting the access to pornography behind a parental wall. On the one hand, that's not a major surprise. Protecting children from pornography has been a steadfast part of the court since the 1970s. On the flip side, that it's going to give an outsized power to a state like Texas to dictate to providers what their websites look like and what verification software they put in place will be slightly interesting going forward. It'll also be to see if this is re-challenged on commerce grounds, which they did not raise in this current case. They relied on First Amendment free speech.
What's upcoming for the Supreme Court? Any upcoming cases that we need to know about?
I think the big one to keep an eye on is the 14th Amendment case is not done. That was never decided on the merits. It's been sent back to the district court. The Supreme Court paused it for 30 days to allow other cases to be filed in other district courts. So that is something to watch. I would be surprised if it wasn't back on the docket come October.
There's still plenty of buzz from last Thursday's streak of fire across the afternoon sky. It wasn't a bird, wasn't a plane, not even Superman or Superwoman, but NASA confirmed this as a fragment of an asteroid, roughly 3 feet wide, weighing about, a little more than a ton. Days later, there's still plenty of questions about it surrounding this cosmic event. So we decided to bring in our friends from the Tellus Museum. Here is Carissa Zdanke, Astronomy Program Manager at the Tellus Museum in Cartersville. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Carissa, tell us how rare it is to see a fireball in broad daylight over such a populated area in Metro Atlanta.
That in itself is actually pretty rare, I would say. While meteors themselves are not during the day, they're usually not bright enough, and it's just not big enough, and especially for one that so many people saw. It's a pretty special occurrence.
All right, so NASA says the fireball released energy of about 20 to 30 tons of dynamite. In layman's terms, break that down for us. What does that mean?
So pretty much, like, for example, they also say that the meteor was going 30,000 miles per hour. That's about 40 times the speed of sound. So just when it hit that atmosphere, all that friction made it burn up. It actually burst into a lot of pieces to spread around the Atlanta area. That's why there's a lot of still meteorite hunters out there right now looking for fragments. So just all that energy as it entered the atmosphere.
Some say that finding those fragments is considered lucky. We did hear of a home being struck in Henry County where it put a hole in the roof. Fortunately, no one was hurt by that, but they are saying that consider the house lucky because it got hit by one of these fragments. Talk to us about it.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like finding a needle in the haystack, having to find a piece that could potentially be this big or, even smaller, just in all of that land space. I mean, it's luck and skill. I don't know if I could track a piece down.
Wow. We've heard reports of a second fireball just hours earlier over the Carolinas. Could this have been more activity from the same source or a different source?
Sorry, you said a different one that was seen over the Carolinas?
Over the Carolinas, yeah, about an hour earlier.
I would say, I mean, it could be a different one. It could have been a part of the same. My first guess when I had heard about it was that it was part of a daytime meteor shower called the Beta Taurids that actually peaked the day before on Thursday. I know there's not really a good way to prove it, but it could just be that the timing worked out on that one. So it is possible that it could be part of that daytime shower, or it could just be a chance meteor that we passed that entered our atmosphere.
Yeah, we know it as rocks or whatever enter into our atmosphere, they begin to burn up. Is there some lead time in warning people that this will happen?
So there's lead time when it is due to a shower, but especially depending on the size. The people who do this for a living that look for meteoroids in space, they would definitely know about it, and they would be able to alert people if it was something particularly spectacular or something that could be an issue. But for the most part, a lot of the time they're really small, so it's not really something they do tend to burn up.
What is it made of? Are these just like rocks, like regular rocks on the earth? How would you find one, right? If you were to stumble upon one, how would you know the difference? Is it made up of a different material?
Yeah, so there's three main types of meteorites. There's stony iron, and iron. So it's kind of self-explanatory what that's made out of. So iron and kind of this stone material. But they do look different from regular rocks. They do have something called a fusion crust, which is literally the rock like melting as it enters the atmosphere. So they will look different than other things that you can find, and a lot of the time people will actually mistake other rocks that they find for meteorites.
Okay. All right, Carissa. I mean, anytime soon, another one coming that you know of?
Well, the next big event to see meteors is the Perseids, which
Mm.
actually peak on August 12th,
Hmm.
and it's known to be one of the most spectacular meteor showers of the year. So if this has excited anybody and you want to try to see more, definitely stay up late August 12th, and you'll probably see some more fireballs.
Warmer than usual weather and reoccurring rainfall and standing water creating these ideal conditions for these pesky pests. We know them as mosquitoes. Here to explain why they're biting around the metro is Elmer Graves, the public health extension specialist and research professional at UGA's College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences. Elmer, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Chesley. It's great to be here.
All right, talk to me about how much of our weather pattern recently has added to this spike of mosquitoes in our area.
Well, summer's arrived, but certainly the rainy periods have filled all the containers and habitats where mosquitoes grow. Mosquitoes require standing water for the larval stages to develop, and anything we got around our homes that's holding water is going to grow mosquitoes.
Wow. All right, so when we talk about mosquitoes, one of the things that comes to many people's minds would be West Nile, right? How serious is this health risk right now?
Right now, we're in the early part of the season. We haven't had much activity yet. The peak period for West Nile transmission is August 15th to September 15th as the mosquito populations grow through the summer. So really, we want to take our precautions now to kind of prevent the problems later.
Now, you're saying we're just at the beginning. Now, I was out yesterday, and I'm telling you I got bit up. But you're saying we're just at the beginning of this?
Yeah, absolutely. We're in the middle of it now as far as just the mosquito season. The warm nights really allow the insects to grow fast. So that's really what's getting the season kicked off is it's finally hot and the nights are staying warm. And then we've had a lot of rain. Some areas have had heavy rains down there around Atlanta. You've had more than we've had here in Athens. But anything that can hold water can grow mosquitoes. We really need to be diligent about the plant trays and tires and kids' toys and garbage cans and things around our homes.
Yeah, really got to dump those out. Now, some people may see this as just a nuisance, but there is a broader health risk, right?
Absolutely. West Nile is a very serious disease. It causes inflammation of the lining of the brain. So when people have severe cases of it, it's extremely serious, and it's a preventable disease. So that's the whole thing is we want to work hard to prevent the mosquitoes from biting us. Light-colored, loose-fitting clothing is very good. It makes us less attractive in the environment. And then EPA-approved repellents work great, and we want to use them according to the label instructions.
So we got to take this seriously. Are there any other illnesses that can be around mosquito bites?
Well, of course, worldwide, malaria is the biggest problem. Dengue is another virus in Central America, South America that's kind of on the rise. So there's other mosquito-borne diseases. People bring these diseases into the United States from travel, pick up the pathogens when they're out and come home with them. We've been fortunate not to have too much localized activity. Our standard of living, the fact that we have running water is really important to prevent mosquito, and it reduces the habitats that mosquitoes can develop.
Do the candelabras work? Do those things that you light up and you put around your backyard or put around your tent? Do they work?
Some of them are better than others. I'm not going to name any products, but
Gotcha.
the products that are sold in your feed and seed and home and gardens that put off a vapor, insecticide vapor, are very effective. If the mosquitoes are bad, they can be very helpful. The old citronella candles that we used to talk about using, not as much. They require still areas. If there's a much of a breeze, it's going to carry those smoke and scents away that have repellent properties.
That makes sense. Are there different types of mosquitoes?
Oh, absolutely. There's 63 species that we know of in Georgia. So what we have here in the upstate are not the exact same ones that they have along the coast. They have salt marsh mosquitoes, much more of a problem in coastal areas along the salt marshes. Chatham County or Savannah is our most developed mosquito control district.
Wow. Okay. So stay from those areas when it comes to the summertime, I guess, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Along the coast is really, and that goes from Massachusetts around Florida, Texas, The coastal areas have much more larval habitats where the mosquitoes can develop and can be quite problematic.
Is it a myth that fans will work because they're so like light insects? Does fans help to blow them away? Is that a myth or is that true?
No, fans are good actually, and that's certainly a box fan on the porch. If you don't want to use any insect repellents, a box fan is going to be very helpful. It's going to make you feel better too from the cooling process. But fans help. Um, your repellents, light colored, loose fitting clothes.
Yeah.
Doing everything we can. You really want to be diligent about this standing water thing. I can't say it enough.
Yeah.
Where the water drains, the downspouts from our gutters can be problems. So there's a lot of stuff that people can do, particularly here in the upstate. We grow most of our own mosquitoes in our yards and neighborhoods here in the upstate.
Mm-hmm. Hey, could you give me one or a particular repellent that works better than the other, or what should I be looking for?
Well, the active ingredient DEET is still kind of the gold standard, but there's other things. Oil of lemon eucalyptus. If people want to use a botanical product, that's very good, but it's only approved for children as young as 3 years of age, whereas DEET is approved for children as young as 2 months. And most of the other repellents are as well, so you need to read the fine print on the repellents, but low concentrations, you're going out for fireworks, you're only going to be out for an hour or two. A light concentration, 7% is pretty common. If you're going to be fishing and out all day, deep woods off or something with a higher concentration to last longer.
Got it. Elmer Gray, thanks so much for the insight, my friend. We really appreciate it.
I cannot refund you your money.
Why not? You sound you are. I requested a call.
Get the out the car. What the is wrong with you? You got the right.
All right, this was a recent altercation between an Uber driver, Miracle Smith, and her passenger, Tabitha Turner. It ended after Smith allegedly pepper sprayed Turner and forcibly removed her from the car. Now, attorney for Turner plans to file a class action lawsuit against Uber. Smith was issued a misdemeanor battery charges and was removed as an Uber driver. It's a scary scene, but there are ways to avoid being caught. Are there ways of being caught in a similar situation or altercation? And it's important to know both sides, both rights, right? With us now is Dr. Thaddeus Johnson. He's from Georgia State's Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology, and is also a long-time law enforcement officer. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, break this down for us now. What's the legal and ethical standpoint where the line is between a driver's right to feel safe and a passenger's right to fair treatment?
No, absolutely. And I'm glad that you're covering and talking about both sides of it because it's things that the passenger can do, things that the driver can do. In general, as a passenger, this is a private transportation contract. You're not detained, right? As long as the vehicle is safe to stop, you can request to be let out, even mid-trip. And you have a right to ask the driver to pull over and let you out in a safe, lit public area like a parking lot or a store. And no explanation is even really needed, right? You have a right to feel safe and in control of your experiences. Drivers must comply. No, these ride shares prohibit them from forcing you to stay at the car. If a driver refuses to let you out, it can be considered false imprisonment. And to that point, if you feel unsafe, call 911 and things like that. They also have Share My Trip types of apps within the app, so you can let your family members or emergency contacts track you as you drive. So those are just some things that as a rider you can do. If you're a driver, first of all, you cannot forcibly remove anybody from the vehicle, and you have a right to feel safe in your own vehicle. And so these things are so important. So don't escalate, don't argue, don't use force, perhaps don't use pepper spray, right? Maintain a calm tone and let them know you're in the trip for safety reasons. And you choose an appropriate location so they can be safe, like a gas station or a store. So you have rights on both sides. If you're a driver, use your dash cam. Both of you all document everything and try not to escalate things that involve law enforcement when necessary.
You mentioned that you can't forcibly remove someone from your own vehicle as a driver. At that point, should she have gotten maybe out of the car herself and left her there and then called 911? Is that how that should work?
Yeah, so there's various ways, but if I was the driver in this situation, right, I'm playing literally Monday morning quarterback.
Right.
The one thing that perhaps you can do is if you can't get across, if you can't reconcile, simply I would cut the vehicle off, put it in park, cut the vehicle off, let the windows down, and I would stand on the side of the road. I will call the rideshare company and contact them, and I will also call law enforcement because I have a person who will not leave my vehicle. So those are things that you can do to protect yourself. Do not take the law into your own hand. We have trained professionals for that.
Gotcha. All right, so looking at this video, right, and you got two parties telling two different stories. How much of a role is that video going to play in getting this solved?
No, this is why I said document everything. Without that video, it would have just been here, she say versus she say, right?
Right.
And that's necessarily good and hard to prove. And so what the video allows us to see is what escalated the situation, who perhaps was the aggressor, if the self-defense argument was appropriate, if there was evidence for it. So it allows and protects both sides and allows law enforcement and the rideshare company to kind of figure out what happened. Also, if there's a civil suit, this is going to come into play very, very importantly in this particular matter, because this evidence shows how things played out and not just a snapshot in time.
When is the pepper spray okay when you feel like your life is threatened? If there was something that could cause either party, right, to begin to use something, right? When their life feels threatened, is that okay or never okay?
Well, so one thing is that OC and pepper spray is not necessarily considered a lethal, in general, a lethal weapon, right, or deadly force. So that's one reason why the driver was charged with a misdemeanor and not a felony. However, if this plays out and say you're sprayed with the pepper spray and pushed out of the vehicle, or you feel like someone is trying to assault you, then you have an imminent fear of threat of a bodily harm or death. And now that can kind of move into that spectrum of when does it become the perception of life and death. But in general, we do not consider OC or pepper spray to be a deadly force type of weapon.
Wow, that's excellent to know. Excellent to know. Some very good points, Dr. Thaddeus. Really appreciate your insight on this. We may have you back depending on how this case goes, because there's still a lot of questions, obviously. People wanting to know what their rights are as far as being a driver and also a passenger. In this particular case, it's kind of like either way, right? It goes kind of up and down.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes to show why try to de-escalate, try to document, try to communicate, and understanding that if you're not happy with your driver, you can simply cancel the ride, get a refund through the company, report the driver about their vehicle and things, and then move on with your lives. You may be delayed a little bit, but we won't be covering this on the news.
You know, a big change meant to protect online shoppers just got pushed back. Let's bring in friend of the show, Morgan Ward, our consumer expert. So glad to see you. Always happy to have you on the show, Morgan.
Good morning, Chesley.
All right. Talk to us about this. This change was supposed to be easier to cancel, right? So what's the holdup with these things and what does it mean for our wallet?
Yeah, so the click to cancel amendment was supposed to allow consumers to be able to cancel their apps. And we've talked about how many apps we all have and subscriptions. And it should be as easy to cancel as it was to sign up. And for most of us, we know that that is just not the case now. So it has been pushed back until mid-July.
Okay, so guess we'll have to wait till then.
Yes, we'll have to wait till then.
All right, so what started as a scroll for deals is now ending in something much more physical, right?
For deals, yes. So people who used to look for deals online are now much more inclined to look for those deals in person as well, because we're just so used to looking for lower prices and being able to price compare that we do it wherever we are. We're deal hunters these days.
Yeah, and almost, to me, it seems like you almost, if you just speak it, it pops up on your phone, right?
Yes.
It comes looking for us.
Supposedly it's not supposed to do that, but it does seem like it does that. And in actual retail settings, something like 72% of people actually check to see if they can get a better deal, probably on Amazon or eBay, than what they see in front of them. So we are what they call showrooming. We're always looking for the best deal.
Are you like that yourself? Are you one of those scrollers?
I hate to say it, but I am. And I try not to be because, you want to be able to have local retailers at the very least be able to profit. You know, I don't want to give all my money to Amazon.
Oh, yeah, I can understand that. I certainly can understand that. All right, today's stories are blurring the lines between shopping and socializing, and it sounds like we have some Gen Zs to thank for this.
Gen Z always changes things, right? So yes, Gen Z has been much more inclined to have consumer experiences over products. And so obviously retailers have been trying to respond to that.
What are some stores that's doing that?
So for instance, Starbucks, now when you have a Starbucks in store, you can also have it in sort of a warm, cozy cup. So you have that kind of in-house feeling of having like a hot coffee in a cup, not in a paper cup. Let's see, a lot of high-end retailers have started creating food concepts as well. So not only can you buy their clothes, but you can be fancy and fashionable in their restaurants. Dick's Sporting Goods has now created a huge, like physically huge concept where you can actually play some of the sports that you buy the products for in these large stores. So everything from climbing the walls to running around. So, and it's already, the revenue there is already more than in their physical, just product-based stores. So retailers are responding.
So Morgan, are they leaving the baby boomers and the Gen Xers behind and just going after the Gen Zs, or what are they doing for us?
So they have to cultivate their next consumer, right? We're already getting to the end of our importance, and Gen X has always been the smallest generation. So Gen Z is who they really are looking at, and then of course we've got Gen Alpha coming right up behind them, who will be even a different set of preferences.
Who get all their money from the baby boomers and the Gen Xers.
Yeah, they've already sopped us dry.
Morgan Ward, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for your insight today. Appreciate it. This week, the Boys and Girls Clubs of America is launching a powerful new campaign, shining a national spotlight on a critical role of youth programs and how they play in shaping the next generation. It comes as Atlanta plays host to a summit focused on emotional safety and trauma enforced care for young people. Here to break it all down for us is Jennifer Bateman. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, talk to us about this campaign that the Boys and Girls Club has.
Well, we have, as you said, we have two special events happening right now. We've long been in the space of engaging and supporting clubs in supporting young people with their emotional and mental health. As you know, there's been an emotional and mental health crisis among our teens specifically over the last number of years. So with the very generous support of our ongoing partners like Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association and Kohl's, we're celebrating the great strides we've been making and bringing about 80 club professionals who are specialists, trauma-informed specialists, to Atlanta to learn from each other, to share best practices, and to continue to take their work back to the communities. But we also have the launch of, as you mentioned, our new campaign, America Needs Club Kids. I don't know if you can see I'm wearing the shirt. And that is a rally cry. It's a reminder that America does need club kids, not just for future leaders, but as solutions to today's challenges like the mental and emotional health challenges. We need brave, resilient young people who overturn stigma and who are vulnerable and courageous and who are then the leaders in these issues moving forward. And we need them right now, and we need America to invest in them.
Yeah, let's go back a little bit. When I was young, obviously when you were young, we had clubs. We had things that we could do and things to occupy our time. Was it cuts that took these programs away and now we are trying to get them back, or what was it?
We've been around the whole time, Chess, 160 years. And yes, during the pandemic, it was certainly challenging. Clubs shifted to be able to meet the basic needs of families and communities. But we've seen rapid growth, both in the young people that we serve and the number of clubs. Right now, we have more than 5,500 clubs, and about 4,700 of them are actively engaged in trauma-informed practice and holistic mental health supports.
Yeah. The campaign touches on equality and access, right? How are you guys going to make sure that every kid in every zip code is included here in Atlanta?
That's exactly what our mission is, right? So we actually in Atlanta serve more than 25 communities. We here in this area have 25 clubs that provide mental and emotional wellness program daily to over 8,600 Atlanta youth. So that organization, which is actually my former Boys and Girls Club where I worked on the ground, continues to grow and reach more young people holistically with the programs, the meaningful relationships, and the supports.
Yeah, you have a trauma-informed summit that starts here today, right here in Atlanta. Why is emotional safety such a central part of youth development right now?
Yeah, I think for a while we as a nation really weren't considering how emotional health was as important and as all the other parts of well-being. Young people don't learn well, they can't gain the experiences. You can provide all the experiences in the world, but if young people can't be present and engaged because they're coming with an emotional health challenge or a trauma, we're leaving a lot of young people behind. So we've really expanded what we know as positive youth development to definitively be addressing the whole child, to meet them where they're at, to not leave any young person behind, so that they can really gain the skills from the programs and experiences that we offer.
Real quickly, somebody watching at home right now, they're passionate about this, they want to get involved. How do they do that?
If you have a passion for this work, if you want to get involved or find a local club, please go to www.bgca.org. And again, you can find more about the program and find a local club.
From social media to cloud storage to AI tools like ChatGPT, the demand for digital power is soaring. But behind the tech boom are physical realities, massive data centers using enormous amounts of water, power, and land. With us this morning is Dr. Andrew Chen. He's a professor of computer science at the University of Chicago. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Great to be here.
All right. We hear a lot about the cloud being invisible, but these data centers are everything but, right? Especially here in the Atlanta metro area. From a technical perspective, why does it require so much physical space and resources?
Well, the thing about these data centers is that they're consuming more and more power these days. And the power is being consumed by tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of computing units, CPUs, and GPUs. So that's why they need so much space.
Water is a hot button issue when it comes to these data centers, right? Why do they use water, or why do they rely on water for cooling and maybe not like air conditioning or something else?
Yeah, so most data centers these days use a combination of technology you might call air conditioning, where they're basically pumping the heat out of the data center. But the most efficient way, actually, to cool the data centers is, what we sometimes call Texas air conditioning. You take a wet towel, you put it on your head, you blow a fan over yourself. And when you do that, actually, you evaporate the water. So that kind of cooling technology called evaporative cooling technology is actually evaporating the water away into the atmosphere. So that's how they consume the water.
I gotcha. Do you know how much power it takes to power these data centers?
It's grown tremendously. Around 2000, when we had an internet boom, a large data center was 10 or 20 megawatts. But today, they're building complexes that could grow to as large as a gigawatt, or even some of the largest ones that have been announced, like Stargate, could be as large as 5 gigawatts. So just to put that in perspective, the average home consumes a little over a kilowatt average power. So a gigawatt data center is consuming the power of almost 1 million homes.
Wow. Wow. Is there a balance, Dr. Chen? Is there a balance where we still want to grow digitally, but we also want to protect the environment and protect our neighborhoods?
Yeah, I think it's important to strike a balance, because it seems pretty clear that we're all going to use more and more computing, right, every day. It's not only just consuming, digital media, streaming services, and so on, but increasingly, by adding AI to all these services to make them more intelligent, to make them more capable, that requires a large amount of additional computing. So, the computer scientists look at this and there's sort of no end in sight, right? The natural amount of computing that you or I could consume just seems to grow as far as the eye can see. The big problem right now with this is that the electronic technology that supports our ability to do computing has been improving tremendously every year for the last 50 or 60 years. But that pace of progress has slowed down. Right. So the so-called end of Moore's law, the so-called end of Dennard scaling, and that means that the amount of energy required per computation is not decreasing as fast as it used to. It may seem like a complicated set of things coming together, but in effect, what that means is in the future, when we do more computing, it's going to require more energy, more water, bigger data centers, and more resources.
So technology changes so rapidly. Is there somebody already looking at that? Are we going to go beyond data centers, perhaps?
Oh yeah, people are definitely looking at it. People have been pursuing different things to make technology scale better for the last 50 years. That's how we got here. But over the last 10 years, we've sort of run out of things to do. And there's still a huge economic incentive, right? The semiconductor industry is hundreds of billions of dollars. And there's huge interest in making those semiconductors, those chips, more power efficient and faster and so on. But the problem is we sort of run out of all of the easy stuff to do to make them faster and cheaper. So it doesn't look like we're going to be able to resuscitate that rapid performance increase. So it does look like we're going to have to be a little bit more careful about how to conserve, how to use computing efficiently. And then on the environmental impact side, there's things that data centers can do to operate better with the power grid. So you can operate a data center a little bit more flexibly, so that it can consume more power when there's more renewable energy. That's one way of reducing its environmental impact. You can cool the data center using different kinds of cooling technology that reduce the amount of water it uses, right? And some of the big companies have made commitments to try and reduce their amount of water use. And so there are things you can do, and I think we need to work really hard at trying to minimize the negative environmental impacts of computing, because we're surely going to use more and more of it going forward.
Yeah. In your opinion, what would be the smartest way for a local government to construct one of these data centers and get the best deals for the community?
Oh, that's a great question. So one of the challenges with data centers is when you build them, you typically have a fair number of jobs around construction, right? Building the infrastructure and so on. But after they go into full operation, and that might take a long time if you have a big data center complex. It might take 5 or 7 years before it's fully into operation. Most of the jobs involve running the computers. So those are IT management kind of jobs. And often those don't even wind up in the community where the data center is. And then there's some physical maintenance jobs, replacing computers, fixing computers, security, all that kind of stuff. So those jobs are not large number compared to the size of the capital investment of the data center. So what can communities do? I think communities should band together and insist that the data center is environmentally responsible. And they might want to negotiate some kinds of contribution to community. I think they're sometimes called community benefit agreements to ensure that some of the value in the employment of this digital bonanza that's happening comes to the community where the data centers are hosting it.
Well, as Metro Atlanta home prices remain out of reach for many, some are turning to a smaller solution. A new micro home community has already sold out. 11Alive's Jonathan Martin joins us now to explain these tiny homes opening new doors for affordable home ownership in our area as part of his Affording Atlanta series. Jonathan, right off the bat, tell us first of all, welcome to the show again. And tell us right off the bat, what is a micro home?
Always good to be here with you, Chesley. Yeah, a micro home is what you might expect. It's a tiny home. In many cases, these are homes maybe 700, 800 square feet. They have a kitchen area, a living space, in some cases 1 or 2 bedrooms, and a bathroom. Really just all that you need, the basics. And we're seeing a lot of these homes, again, in Metro Atlanta. This new community that you're looking at is in Union City, sold out before it was even fully constructed. So that's what a micro home is, just enough space, usually for a lot of small families or single people.
And they're under demand. So is it more about the affordability or the practicality?
Well, maybe both, but affordability is what you'll hear from most of the people you talk to. We often talk about the high price of home ownership here in Atlanta. The average home still costing well over $400,000. So these micro homes really start anywhere between $200, $220 or so $1,000. So for a lot of people who are tired of renting, they want to enter home ownership but can't afford those high prices, this is an option for a lot of people really at a cheaper value, but still in a home.
Yeah, a home. Want to call yourself a homeowner. There's been some complaints about the quality of these homes. What are some of these concerns?
Yeah, we talked to the owner of Techie Homes, Booker T. Washington. He's the developer who built this community that we just saw and the one previously in College Park. Some of the tenants or some of the homeowners there in College Park complained about insulation issues. They also complained about just the homes being poorly built. He says he's addressed some of those concerns and really says with the micro homes, you're going to get some issues here and there, but he stands by the quality of the bills, says that they are built by licensed professionals. They are inspected. He says they are cement cladded, algae proof, mold proof. So he says, yeah, there have been a few issues, but overall he stands by the quality.
You mentioned that this community right here is sold out. Is there more of these micro homes being built down the pipeline here?
As demand is growing, Chesley, absolutely. We are hearing from the developer of this micro home community in Union City that we just showed you that he's planning another in Norcross. So he has College College Park already, Union City, and another plant in Norcross. And he says he'll keep building as long as demand is there.
How does he pick those locations?
Well, he's actually from Metro Atlanta. He grew up on the South Side, and he said he wanted to specifically build these homes in communities that he thinks need higher levels of home ownership. For example, Union City, College Park, those are communities where the majority of people, if you didn't know, are renters. And he says if we can get more people owning homes, that's better for all of us, building equity and building those communities up. So that's why he's specifically looking toward the South Side.
Jonathan, I don't know if you talked to him about this or not. What's the age group that we're looking at here? Is it more toward the younger folks that you talk about maybe renting, or are these some of the older folks in our community that may be priced out of their community because of gentrification that we've talked about before?
Yeah, it's actually a little bit of both. That's a great question. He said that we have people from 25 all the way up to 65 getting into these homes. Of course, people who maybe are new homeowners. We're going to hear from one of those gentlemen tonight in my story. He's a graphic artist. He can't afford a big home, $300,000 or $400,000. So a single guy, and so he's getting into the market. But we also talk to people who are older, in their 60s, maybe wanting to downsize. They don't need a big, huge home anymore. So this is just the amount of space that they need.
Two Atlanta-based environmental groups are trying to come together to try to keep the Chattahoochee River from being a victim of federal budget cuts. Here with us today is Brittany Jones, Executive Director of the Chattahoochee National Park Conservancy. Welcome to the show, Brittany.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, talk to me about the importance of the federal funding for the river, especially the Chattahoochee River National Recreation Area.
Yeah, I think, what I want to start out by saying, and I guess emphasizing, is our park here in the Metro Atlanta area has been chronically underfunded and under-resourced for over a decade now. And what we're seeing since the start of this year is really an attack on even more, I would say, resource and funding allocation toward our park and parks across the country. There's been more of a strain and amplification on the issue for staffing and budget cuts and hiring freezes. And now there's a proposed budget out there for the National Park Service, which in turn would affect our Chattahoochee down here, of $1 billion cut to a $3 billion agency. So there's a lot of concern swirling around right now for our park.
You said it's been underfunded for the last 10 years? Is that right?
At the very least, the National Park Service has the internal reputation, I would say, of not being funded quite enough for what it needs. Our park out here in Metro Atlanta, what I like to say is Atlanta's Backyard National Park, has now a deferred maintenance of over $53 million. So their budget just hasn't been able to cut what they need to keep up with just the growing demand of being in an urban area with high visitation. I mean, this is in consistently the top 30 most visited national parks in the country.
How have you guys been bridging the gap with that?
Well, we pick away at it as much as we can. So we are the nonprofit friends group to the national park, and our mission really is to enhance the park. And so we don't try and come in and necessarily fill the gaps that the federal budget just isn't cutting necessarily, but we do try and work with the park to help build on the priorities of what the park needs for the community to enjoy the park, and also for it to just be here for the future generations. We want it to be here 100 years, 200 years from now, and for folks to have the same experience that they have today and 100 years from now. But it really is just trying to chip away year after year with what they can do with the money that they are given through federal appropriations. And it really is an uphill battle. So this year is especially difficult, seeing even more proposed cuts to the budget.
Yeah, often people think, and I'm sitting here thinking that national parks are well protected. I don't know if you can see my face or not, but I'm surprised about how fragile this is. I mean, how surprised are you when people find out that, of situations like this, and when they hear about this? Are you surprised by that?
Oh yeah. I think there's been some very strategic, I guess, actions taking place for the visitors of the parks across the country. I mean, this isn't happening in a bubble and at the Chattahoochee here in Atlanta. It's happening across the country, across 433 parks. But for the visitors not to really be affected. So if you go into the park today and you pay your $5 fee, I hope, you won't really feel what's going on behind the scenes, because the Park Service has really been directed to stay open and accessible and keep operating. But what's happening behind the scenes, as there's hiring freezes, folks are being encouraged to take early retirement buyouts. Vacancies aren't being filled. There's certainly an encouragement for reductions in force that we're seeing. So there's a lot of scrambling behind the scenes to stay open, and the visitors don't feel that. So you won't feel it if you're going on a hike today at the Chattahoochee,
Gotcha.
but there's certainly a lot of concern, and it's certainly just kind of swirling behind the scenes. And on top of that, as we go into federal appropriations season for next year, we're even worried, because there's not a ton of information being passed down to the physical parks themselves, and even more to the nonprofit partners, of course. But how does $1 billion cut affect the Chattahoochee and parks across the country? We don't know. So our worry is, what is going to be the sacrifice that needs to be made, because these parks do need to stay open? Is it going to be conservation, resource management, all those really important things that happen behind the scenes so this park can stay as it is today?
Brittany, we're running out of time here real quick, but if you can tell me in a minute, A, what happens if you lose this funding, and B, how can people help you out?
Well, if we lose the funding, I think that we're going to see a lot more activation, especially for groups like us, nonprofit partners to national parks. I think we're going to have to take a much bigger role in how we support the parks. What people can do right now is call their elected officials. I mean, parks are a nonpartisan space. I think you just need to call and tell folks how much you love your national park and how important it is to you. And we have a lot of great resources on our website to learn more about what's going on. And honestly, just becoming a member of our organization, those dollars go right back into the park. So any little thing helps right now.
My final take. Truly a whirlwind start to a romance for two storm chasers. This photo has gone viral of Sheldon and Paige committing to marriage with a tornado in the background. Look at that right there, right? This was in South Dakota. People thinking, okay, that's a fake. It's AI generated. Nope. It's real. And according to Sheldon, it took a lot of planning to get the perfect storm, if you know what I mean. The two met roughly a year ago as members of a storm-chasing group. They've been inseparable ever since. Paige hinted that if Sheldon ever proposed to her, she wanted to do it in front of a tornado. Can you believe that? So Sheldon made it happen, right? Carrying around the ring until they found the perfect day when they were out storm chasing. Sheldon is showing that he is willing to fulfill her dreams this early in a relationship. I think, Paige, you got to keep her right there. And if you're thinking he was putting themselves in harm's way, keep in mind it's the northern plains. You can see those tornadoes way out. So they were safe. Plus, they're trained. They know what they're doing. They chase storms all the time. I'm praying for a long, blissful marriage, hopefully with no storms interrupting the marriage at all. That's all we got for you today, folks. Make it a great day and try to encourage someone to stay away from storms here. We don't have any this week. Enjoy.